Necessity is definitely the mother of invention. You invent something because it becomes necessary. That's how this curriculum came about. In 1981, I was coaching at a school in San Antonio, and we were 7-3 and did not make the playoffs. We were not a traditionally strong football team, but the superintendent told our head coach that if we did not make the playoffs the next year, we would not have a job. That's Texas high school football. And our head coach was quick to tell it to us. And we had a really good coaching staff. D.W. Rutledge, Jim Rackley, John Snowdy, Pete Gibbons, Sylvester Perez, Frank Arnold was the head coach, and myself. And so we sat down to try to determine why didn't we make the playoffs? Because we obviously wanted to stay there and we wanted to keep our jobs. Well, when we got to talking about it, we didn't talk about the football or the weightlifting or the strength or the quickness or the speed or the athleticism. What we talked about was our kids didn't have any leadership. They had a bad attitude. They had a poor self-image. Everything that we talked about was a mental part of football. Now, during the time at the end of the season until the Christmas break, I had a chance to go and listen to a man speak. And the guy got up and he said these things which really struck me. He said, Bear Bryant said that football is 90% mental. How many of y'all agree with that? Well, all the hands went up. And he said, okay, how much time do you spend on the mental part? It kind of hit you right between the eyes. He said that they had done a study at Harvard, and they determined that 85% of the reason a person gets a job, keeps a job, and moves up in a job is based on their attitude, and 15% is based on their technical skills and knowledge. We should be preparing kids to get jobs, and 85% of that is their attitude. How many of you have classes on attitude? He said that Max Thompson did a study at Stanford University that determined how young people learn. And 25% was based on IQ, 25% was based on the environment, how good the teacher was, the curriculum, the parents, the home life, and 50% was based on self-image. If you didn't believe you could, you couldn't. And he said, how many of you guys have classes on self-image? And all the things that he talked about, the mental part, really struck me. And so I went home, and it's the first time I ever heard the word insanity used in such a way. And he said, insanity is simply doing the same thing you've been doing and expect different results. So we went back and we sat down as a coaching staff and we put all these things in front of us and we said, now what is it that we're really doing to change the leadership, the attitude, the self-image, the acceptance of responsibility? What are we doing about this? And of course we came to the conclusion, nothing. So we said, okay, let's start doing something. And so let's do what any coach would do. Let's find out what other people are doing and we'll copy them. And we started researching the high schools, the colleges, the professional football. We couldn't find anybody that was spending time on the mental part of it. Now, they might have a pep talk on Thursday, and every coach talked to the kids at the end of practice and told them, you don't have a good attitude, we need better leadership, blah, 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 and all that. And that's called preaching. Well, when you hear that click, 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 that means the kids are turning you off. So we started really researching and trying to find out a way to do this. And we looked at the mental health people because we felt like, hey, they're the mental health people. They should know how to teach these things. Well, we found out that there's several things you have to be willing to do. You've got to make a commitment to several things in order to teach the mental part. Now, I'm not talking about preaching it. I'm talking about teaching it. And the number one thing was you had to give up 15 minutes every day. It's just like taking a bath. You may have had a great bath yesterday, but you need another one today. You can't do mental training one day a week and expect it to happen. Everybody that's had great parents knows that you've been told something 100 times and it sticks with you and it becomes a part of you. Well, mental training is something that takes 15 minutes every day. In 1981, that was a huge investment for an off-season football program. The UIL, the governing body, said you could only have 50 minutes a day. We were only about 6 blocks from our biggest rival, so we knew if we went 1 minute over that it would be known to the UIL. So we had 50 minutes. We had to be willing to give up 15 minutes a day for the mental training. The second thing that they told us was what you've got to do is you've got to find stories. You got to find stories that illustrate what it is you're trying to get done. Self-image, responsibility, attitude, whatever it is, you've got to spend 15 minutes and tell them a story, because stories are what people will listen to. At the end of the story, they've got to write answers to questions you give them, and they've got to write the answers because at the base of the brain is a group of cells called the reticular activating sensors. This group of cells is essentially your junk mail filter for the brain. It lets in two things: anything that's a danger to you and anything that's important to you. The brain deems what's important is if you write it down. So when Harvard did a study and found out 50% of accomplishing a goal is writing it down, that's where it came from, the RAS. So you give them a story, you ask them questions, and then you discuss the answers. And from that, you develop these qualities, these self-image, responsibility, attitude, all the things that we felt like we really needed. As I said, we were not the head coach. The head coach was Frank Arnold. And so we went to him and we had this plan, and he said, okay, I'll do it for 6 weeks. At the end of that 6 weeks, if it's not proven effective, then we're through with it. So we began, and D.W. Rutledge and I started doing it 1 week at a time. And he'd do a week, I'd do a week, and we stayed a week ahead of the kids. And we'd find stories and do the things that we did. At the end of 6 weeks, Coach Arnold didn't say anything, so we went to him, and he said, we're getting done more in the 35 minutes than we ever got done in the 50 minutes. So we're going to continue with it. Well, in 1982, we were 14-1. We got beat in the semifinals. In 1983, we won the Big 5A state championship of the state of Texas when there was only one state champion in 5A, and 5A was the largest classification. We won that state championship, and you can obviously, in today's information age, you can Google it and make sure I'm telling the truth. We didn't have a 200-pound person on the football team. The only people that weighed 200 pounds were the coaches. But every kid on that team was less than 200 pounds, and we won the Texas State Championship. Well, that meant that it wasn't what was on the outside that won it. What was on the inside is what won it. It made me the biggest believer in character education. So over the last 38 years, what I've actually done is taken that original curriculum and tried to improve upon it. And in 38 years, I think we've come to a curriculum that will make a difference in anything that you do. What I did was they had a think tank in Colorado, and they determined the 300 greatest leaders that ever lived. Now, you can argue with these 300 greatest leaders, but everybody knows them. Martin Luther King, Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, Mahatma Gandhi, Jesus Christ, all of these people that we still know their names. We still know about them, no matter how much in depth we know about them. And what this think tank determined was what were the character qualities that determined who they were. And they listed these qualities. Well, the second thing that think tank determined was that every human being has these qualities. Obviously, Abraham Lincoln had honesty developed to the nth degree. Well, if you've told the truth once in your life, you have honesty within you. It may not be developed. Now, let me tell you what character education means. The word educate actually means to pull out. So what you're really doing when you have character education is you're pulling out of them the character that's already in them. So when we developed this curriculum, we took 36 qualities, the 36 qualities of these 300 greatest leaders, and we said, okay, we're going to develop one quality per week. Now on Monday, what we do every Monday is goals. Because goals are not something that you just theoretically learn. You may learn the SMART method of setting goals or whatever it might be. But in order to become a goal-oriented, purpose-driven individual, you have to practice the goal setting, the purpose-driven. So every Monday we do goals and we introduce whatever the quality might be. On Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, there's a different story every day. Originally we had one story per week. Now we've got 3 different stories. We've got a story on Tuesday. After you hear the story, you have to write answers to the questions. And that is absolutely imperative because of the RAS. And then you discuss the answers to those questions. That takes 15 minutes, no more, no less. And you can easily get it done in that 15 minutes. Wednesday, another story, another question, another answer. Thursday, another story, another question, another answer. Now I want you to think about something. That's education. That's teaching anything. If I taught you a concept in math, if I did a really good job of teaching you a concept in math, you would remember 2% of it if we did nothing else. If I taught you a concept of math and you answered 10 questions or 10 problems, or you worked the problems using that concept, you would remember 60 to 80%. If I taught you a concept, you did the problems, and we discussed how you used that concept in determining your answers, you would remember 80 to 100%. What's the difference in character education? 0, not an ounce of difference. The number one thing you do is you tell the story. The second thing you do is you answer the questions. The third thing that you do is that you discuss the answers. Doesn't matter who you discuss them with, but you discuss them. If all you do is listen to the stories, you're going to remember 2%. 2%, that's it. The Friday is your evaluation day. Monday was your goal setting day, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are the quality day. Now on Friday, you evaluate. How did I do this week on the quality of honesty? And you give yourself a plus or a minus each day. If that is a minus that you give, in other words, you weren't honest one day, you don't beat yourself up. You simply write, why weren't you honest and what can you do differently to make sure it works? That's character education. Those are the 36 qualities that you do, that you work with. Now, as you go, you have to be a willing participant. You cannot just listen to the stories. If you do that, you're only talking about 2% of improvement. If you listen to the stories, write the answers, and discuss the answers, you're talking about 80 to 100%. It's a 36-week curriculum, 36 qualities, 36 weeks, an entire school year on it. I will be willing to do anything that I can to help you do it. The curriculum is free. There's 2 things people always told me. The reason we don't do character education, we don't have time. We got all this on our plate right now, and we just don't have the time to do it. Let me tell you something. You're going to spend time on character. Your decision is, are you going to be proactive or reactive? Are you going to instill the character in them? Or are you going to react when they lack character and you have to deal with it? This program has been proven effective in number 1, improving self-image. Number 2, improving attendance at school. And number 3, now this is research-based. These are not anecdotal. Number 3, lessening of discipline referrals. I don't know what else you want. Improve the self-image, improve attendance, and lessen the discipline referrals. That's what's been proven effective in school after school. You can get the curriculum free. That's the second reason people tell me they don't teach character education. We can't afford it. Well, you can this. This is a ministry. We don't charge 1 penny. The curriculum is at developingcharacter.org. You can print off as many copies as you want. You can print it off one at a time, do anything you want to with it. It is free. developingcharacter.org. My email is coachingtochangelives@gmail.com. Email me anytime you want to. My phone number is 580-212-7752, which you can call anytime and talk to me about it. On Monday, May the 4th, we will begin teaching this curriculum, and it will have a lesson every day beginning May the 4th for 36 weeks in a row. So there's no reason not to do character education.